But while that's the system that they've established, you know what happened last year? Last year, all the money that they sent to the region, they had to either send it back to the Ministry of Health.
They could use it.
They sent it to the Ministry of Health and then asked the Ministry of Health, can you buy these medicines for us? Because we don't know what to buy. So we got back to centralized. So why implement a system, a bureaucratic system that has all these steps, and in the end the steps are not working? Go directly to the ministry and you cut out all this bureaucracy, and it will be a time-saving effort. So you go directly to the Ministry of Health, give them the money, let them go and buy the things, and then distribute it to the region. That was the system before, right? Now, because of all this long drawn-out process, come December last year, most of the money was not spent. Even the Ministry of Health could not spend the money, so they sent back close to $600 million just for drugs and medical supplies. And in the meantime, some of the most elementary things that you need in the system were totally absent. Things like gloves, ordinary gloves, surgical gloves to do operations you can't get. So what happened? None of the theaters in the various regions were working because the people ain't got gloves.
Wow.
In some places you can't get aspirin, right? And it's so bad that the management of Georgetown Hospital was called before the Parliamentary Public Accounts Committee. When they went there, one of the questions posed to the management of the hospital, can you tell us about your procurement system for drugs and medical supplies? So they explained. How much of it you got right now? They said we normally buy 184 different items. Out of the 184 different items, 180 short. 180 short. So you understand what we're talking about here. So it's not a shortage of money, it's a system, it's management, it's procurement, and they're not doing it properly. And so you can see with just those examples how the system has deteriorated. The Georgetown Hospital has started doing kidney transplant, for example. Great effort. We had sent some of these doctors to train in Canada and so forth. They're back now. They have the capability to do these things. But what is happening? When they do the transplant on a patient, those patients would require medication for the rest of their life. The obligation on behalf of the government, on behalf of the hospital, was that they would provide these medication. I've seen a few of those patients, and guess what? They got to take money out of their pocket and try to get the medication, and it's very, very expensive. I met a man whose daughter had one such operation. He's an ordinary guy, he's probably working for about $60,000 a month. One of the medication costs close to $15,000 to $20,000. Can't afford it. But that's just one example, and there are many other examples of things that are going disastrously wrong in the sector. Look at, currently we have Zika. People are talking about Zika in Guyana. Guyana does not have the laboratory equipment or the personnel trained to detect the Zika virus by laboratory method. So what we've been doing, we've been taking some samples and we're sending it to the Caribbean Public Health Lab. So among the samples that we've sent, a couple of them were positive. Now if we are going to wait on only laboratory confirmed cases, then we are going to find very few cases. Very few, because of the large population of people who are infected, we are taking a small portion and taking off their blood. And of that small portion, then a few of them would come back positive. So based on this...
So there's no widespread testing?
No widespread testing. So based on this scenario, then we probably announce we only have 1 case or 2 cases or 3 cases or whatever. And they're correct because the methodology that they've used is telling you that this is what you'll yield from that methodology. Now the Center of Disease Control have said that you can have suspected cases if the people present, with joint pains and rash and red eye or pink eye and fever and things like that. So any 2 of these can be considered as a suspect case. We're not monitoring. So a lot of people come to the various hospitals and doctors, and so they're seen, they're given some basic medication, they go home, they feel okay after a couple of days, but it's not recorded as a case of Zika. But why is it important to monitor? It's important because there's a close association now with Zika and something called Guillain-Barré syndrome, where people can get paralyzed. And if we don't have ventilators available, then those persons can die. If you're not monitoring, then you will not know. So we have this challenge, and we need to put the systems in place just in case that we start seeing incidents of Guillain-Barré. Just 2 days ago, the Lancet came out with a study that confirmed that people who are infected with Zika can get Guillain-Barré syndrome. But we are not putting the systems in place. And again, what is also important, we have about 15,000 births every year in this country. We need to monitor pregnant women and among the pregnant women to see if any of them got Zika.
No, but some are dying.
Well, let's start with monitoring them for during their pregnancy if they had Zika, right? And if they had Zika, then we got to monitor them during the pregnancy to probably see whether there's a development of these small-headed babies, right?
But the Guyanese, I think the head are too big.
No,
you can just get Zika here to make the head smaller.
No, there's a serious thing because you see in Brazil, literally thousands of children are being born with neurological defects and small heads and things like that. But again, we need to monitor. We don't have a system in place right now to do that kind of monitoring. And what would be worse is that if, let's say hypothetically, a mother is infected with Zika and then she gave birth to a baby a couple months from now, and that baby turns out to be with microcephaly and all these neurological defects, that could have been avoided. It could have been avoided. So if we don't put the systems in place now, we are going to see challenges a couple months from now, a year from now. And then a simple thing, eradication of the mosquito. We're not even doing that. So they started out fogging a few places and it has stopped. You can't approach public health things like this. You got to be more aggressive. You got to bring in the kind of expertise and put the systems in place to make sure that the population is safe. And we're not seeing that the ministry understand the depth of the problem, and therefore they're not treating it seriously and putting the kinds of measures in place that you ought to put in place.
Dr. Anthony, let us move on from, in the interview, we want to touch on a few more topics. The crime situation briefly, the local government elections, and the corruption accusation of the members of the former government, including yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Did you steal any money from the Carifesta project that they had? I think something in the news of that sort was circulating.
Well, they had, during the elections campaign, the APNU AFC was talking about they would do an audit of Carifesta, they would do an audit of Cricket World Cup. Well, I'm happy that they did the audit. I haven't received a copy of any of those audit reports, but listening to the junior Minister of Finance, he said that one of the major findings is that we probably spend about, I don't know, excessive money. Now, I don't know where he got his figures from, but our intention had always been to spend close to about $5 million on CARIFESTA, because that is what it would have cost us. And when you look at CARIFESTAs in the region, this is not the most expensive. We are probably like in the mid-range. And for the amount of activities that we had during that period, and the amount of people that came in, the artists and so on, the amount of renovations and everything that we had to do, it is money well spent. So the books are there, they were able to go through them, and I haven't heard anything adverse, other than saying that perhaps we have overspent. But overspent on what base? Because we said we were going to spend about $5 million, and around that ballpark is what we spent. So that's not corruption, and in fact, an interesting thing, because a lot of the people who participated in CARIFESTA 10, a lot of them were supporters of the ACNO, and many of them were in charge of the various committees that ran that festival. So if there is any corruption, then perhaps their supporters were involved in the corruption as well. But we can't see any corruption, and they haven't released any of the report. Cricket World Cup, there were all these allegations floating around about Cricket World Cup. There's nothing there. In fact, I can tell you that in the accounts for Cricket World Cup, there are $2 million there. And I'm waiting to see how the government is going to be spending that money, because we made $2 million. So if there was corruption, then perhaps you wouldn't have had any money. But there's money in that account, and it's with the Ministry of Finance. So I don't take them very seriously, because they're making wild allegations and they have no evidence, no substance to back it up. They had an opportunity to go through and peruse all the papers that were there, and they can't find anything. So maybe it's another one of these campaign gimmicks. And if they really think there was corruption and they have the evidence, then let them go and get the police and lock up whoever committed those crimes, because we're not here to condone corruption. As when we were in government, we were there to serve people, and we did it to the best of our ability. And therefore, if there were people who engage in bad practices and corrupt practices, then they should be jailed for that. And we have no apologies for that. So it's clear. But spending a lot of money on doing audits, and right now you can't even disclose what is in those audits, something is totally wrong. And then you have, apart from that now, we have some strange entities that are being set up.
SACU and SACU.
SOCU, now I think they have deviated from their original mandate, and they're doing all kinds of strange things.
Like what?
For example, they're calling in people. I know a number of the top PPP leaders were called in and questioned based on a report that Anand Gulsuran would have done about financial improprieties. And apparently somebody was telling me that he was there observing. Now, many of the reports that he has completed from the information that we've had, they're not comprehensive. And so calling in SOCU to do that kind of investigation, I'm not sure that that is the entity that should be doing that. So there are deviations from what they were established to do. And then you have the other unit that is set up in the office of the president that seem to be going after people. You know, recently with the SOCU thing too, they went after some businessman. I don't know why they went after him. But that's not sending the right signal. If If the persons are in breach of a particular law or something, fine. We have no apologies for that. Lock them up, do what you have to do. But you can't be going out there intimidating people. You can't be going out there and seizing people's computer and property without any valid reason. These are not right things, and then you want the same business people in this country to turn back and reinvest their money here so that we can make the economy buoyant. It's not going to happen, because with this pervasive sense of fear that is stalking the land right now, people are not going to invest. And you're going to have a slide in the economy. And coupled with, while all of that is going on, you also have in this recent budget a number of tax measures that were passed that is going to take the disposable income out of the pockets of the ordinary people. So we are not, instead of them putting in measures in place to stimulate the economy, to grow the economy, what you're doing is putting measures that will stifle the economy. So, I mean, their policies are very strange. Imagine right now, a man who got a donkey cart got to pay an annual fee, an annual license. How many donkey carts they got in this country? How much money you gonna make from that? A man with a horse cart got to pay a fee. A man with an ox cart, well, I don't know when last you see an ox cart, but that's on the books. We appealed to them. We said, these are poor people. A man owning a donkey cart is a poor man. He might be selling fish or baigan or something somewhere. Why you want to impose a burden on such a poor person? Why not repeal those taxes? Repeal them, take them off the books, because this is catering for poor people. No. And because we made that suggestion, no. People with, a lot of people now driving their little cars and things like that. Now that has changed, because you can only bring in a car of a certain age. So which means the cost of the vehicle goes up. The affordability to the ordinary man now is down, because he can't afford it anymore. And to compound it, they use tires. Poor people, they're going to buy a used tire, use it for a couple of months and things like that, because a lot of people can't afford a new tire. And all of that now is being imposed on the ordinary people of this country. So when we examine a lot of what is happening, one of the things that we are concluding is that the people who are now benefiting from government policies are people who would have helped them during their campaign, who would have probably given them money during their campaign. So they're implementing policies now to favor some of these people. And we are seeing a lot of examples like that. And it's a disastrous policy, because it's going to damage this economy and it's going to create more hardships for ordinary people in this country.
Dr. Anthony, we want to thank you very much for your views and your insight. I'm sure our viewers and the program inside Guyana will listen to that and make their own conclusions, and they can formulate their opinion. My job here is to bring the information from the relevant individuals who have in-depth knowledge in these fields. So that today you have the opportunity to look at the ITV viewers in the eyes.
Sure.
And give them your message. No question from me. Please, tell them whatever you want to say as Minister of Health, as former Minister, Shadow Minister of Health, former Minister of Youth, Culture and Sports, and current Member of Parliament, leading member of the People's Progressive Party.
But I think what is important is that Guyanese living in the diaspora, you need to pay attention, close attention to what is happening in Guyana. And you shouldn't be fooled by what the government is putting out, because they tend to come to the diaspora and they paint a nice rosy picture. It is far from that. Right now, over the last several months that this government has been in office, we have seen a lot of broken promises. We have seen the economy not growing. We have seen that they haven't put any incentives in the budget to stimulate the economy, and things are really going to get difficult in Guyana. And in the health sector, we are seeing a decline in the sector and things are slipping. So we need your support in helping us to keep pressure on the government and to make sure that we hold them accountable for the things that are happening. And when they come to you and they're trying to talk to you, be respectful, but ask them the deep questions about what is happening here. Ask them about their policy. Ask them why they're retrenching so many qualified people and they're hiring people who don't have qualifications, but we've gone back to the days of party card. These are not right policies and it will not help with the development of our country. So if you have the development of our country at heart, we are encouraging you to ask these probing questions and hold this government to account. It's very important for all of us. Thank you.
Our guest today was Dr. Frank Anthony. We are very happy and grateful for the opportunity to bring this coverage to you from his office in Carmichael Street, Georgetown, Guyana. Until next time, this is Dr. Rudy Jadoopat on behalf of our team here today, wishing you all the best.